My name is Connor Reynolds and I'm 31 years old, living in a mid-sized city in the Pacific Northwest. For 5 years I was married to Stephanie, a woman who initially captivated me with her bold personality and sharp wit. I was drawn to her vibrant energy, convinced that life with her would be exciting and fulfilling. But as time passed, her boldness took on a different form, one that constantly put our relationship to the test. She had a habit of flirting, seeking attention, and stirring up unnecessary drama, often at my expense. I tried to adapt, hoping our marriage would eventually settle into something stable, but it never did. Instead, our relationship culminated in an explosive confrontation at a fateful party that led to our ultimate breakup. From the beginning, I noticed Stephanie's fondness for attention, particularly from men. She would charm waiters, laugh a little too loudly at offhand jokes, and casually brush arms with other men during social gatherings. At first, I dismissed it as her being naturally friendly, but as time went on, the pattern became impossible to ignore. She would do these things openly as if testing my reaction. I often lay awake at night questioning myself. Was I overreacting? Was this normal? But deep down, I knew it wasn't about jealousy. It was about the way she constantly pushed boundaries as if daring me to object. When I finally brought it up, I was met with indifference. "Steph, you can't keep flirting so obviously, it's embarrassing," I told her one evening. She waved me off with a smirk. "I'm just being friendly. Lighten up." The behavior escalated. One evening at a friend's barbecue, she showed up in an outfit designed to draw attention and clung to a random guy's arm, laughing and insisting on dancing with him. I waited until later to address it calmly. "That was too much," I told her. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. I wasn't hooking up with him, I was just having fun." For 5 years, I lived on edge, never knowing when the next social gathering would turn into another spectacle. Our friends would joke, "Connor's wife is a handful," and I'd force a chuckle, silently hoping she'd change. But she never did. The final breaking point came at a small house party, about 20 guests, a seemingly harmless gathering. We arrived late, and from the moment we walked in, I could see the familiar gleam in Stephanie's eyes. She had already been drinking before we got there, just enough to embolden her antics. I stayed near the kitchen, sipping soda and keeping an eye on her, a survival instinct I had developed over time. About half an hour in, I spotted her chatting with a tall, broad-shouldered man I didn't recognize. He laughed a little too loudly at whatever she had said and I braced myself. Moments later, she deliberately stepped into his path, bumping into him with a playful shove. The man stumbled and turned to her with an irritated expression. "Hey, watch it, lady." Stephanie's posture stiffened. "Excuse me?" He frowned. "You nearly knocked me over. How about you apologize?" Her eyes flashed. "You want an apology?" she snapped. Caught off guard, the man huffed. "Seriously? You shoved me first." Before I could react, she raised her hand and slapped him across the face, a sharp, echoing crack that silenced the entire room. The man's expression darkened and without hesitation he slapped her back. Whether it was instinct or rage I couldn't say. My stomach dropped as I sprang into action, shoving through the crowd. Hey, enough," I shouted, stepping between them. The man's face was tight with anger, and Stephanie clutched her stinging cheek, eyes blazing. I turned to him, my voice thick with fury. "What the hell are you doing, hitting my wife?" He glared at me. "Your wife hit me first. She shoved me then slapped me. I just reacted." I hesitated, torn between the instinct to protect her and the undeniable truth of what had just happened. Around us, murmurs spread, some blaming the man, others pointing out that Stephanie had instigated the whole thing. My head spun. Then she turned on me, her voice sharp with betrayal. "Don't just stand there. Be a man. You saw him hit me." I took a deep breath, anger and exhaustion flooding through me. "Steph," I said slowly, "you slapped him first. You pushed him. You insulted him. You started this." Her eyes widened in outrage. "You're my husband. You should defend me, not blame me." In that moment, I realized something undeniable. This wasn't just a bad night. This was who she was. And I was done making excuses. "How am I supposed to defend you when you provoked him?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "All these years, you've flirted and stirred up trouble with men, and I've been your scapegoat. I'm done." Stephanie glanced around, noticing the curious eyes on us. She tried to hush me, but I refused to be silenced. "Don't you dare talk to me like this in public," she hissed. I cut her off, my voice low but seething. "No, Stephanie. I've stayed silent for 5 years, always covering for you, always making excuses. You've humiliated me time and time again, and now you've outright attacked some random guy without reason. I saw it happen. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand to stop her. You always say I'm not man enough to handle your personality. But here's the truth, I'm done tolerating your chaos. Her cheeks flushed, whether from anger or embarrassment I couldn't tell. I can't believe you're taking his side, she spat. I'm not taking anyone's side, I replied, shaking my head. But if you want honesty, you brought this on yourself. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The man she had attacked stood nearby, arms crossed, clearly unwilling to apologize either. Tears welled up in Stephanie's eyes. Are you saying I deserve to be hit? I swallowed hard. I'm saying you shoved him first, then slapped him. This reckless behavior of yours, this constant need for attention, has gone too far. My voice wavered, laced with exhaustion and heartbreak. I've tried to be patient, to understand, to endure the endless flirting, the provocations. But I'm done. She gaped at me. Fine. You're weak. You never stand up for me. I let out a bitter laugh. Stand up for what? Your public outbursts? Your need to start fights? I'm through. As I turned and walked away, the crowd parted. Stephanie shouted after me, demanding I come back, but I kept going. Near the door, I told a friend, I'm leaving. She can find her own way home. People stared. Some tried to intervene to calm me down, but I brushed them off. I got into my car, heart pounding, half expecting her to follow me. But she didn't. She stayed inside, likely redirecting her fury at the unfortunate host or the man she'd antagonized. Driving home, a flood of emotions surged through me, relief, anger, sorrow. The years of tension had finally exploded in a messy, undeniable truth. This relationship was beyond saving. The breaking point. Once home, I paced the living room, the weight of the night settling in. I had never been impulsive, but this time the decision was clear. I was done with this toxic cycle. My phone buzzed with messages from acquaintances at the party. Are you okay? What just happened? I ignored them all. For the first time in years, I didn't care about appearances or gossip. Hours later, Stephanie arrived by taxi. She slammed the front door and stormed into the living room, eyes red, either from crying or rage. Why did you abandon me there? She demanded. I met her gaze coldly. Because I'm done. I walked to the closet, pulled out a suitcase and dropped it onto the couch. Pack up. You can leave tonight or tomorrow. Your choice. But I'm not living with you anymore. Her eyes widened in shock. You're kicking me out over one little fight? I gave a hollow laugh. One fight? This is years of humiliation, years of you flirting with other men, belittling me, treating me like a doormat. Tonight was just the final straw. She launched into a tirade, calling me spineless, the same insult she had used against me for years. But I didn't argue. I just pointed at the suitcase. If you'd rather I leave, fine. But we're done. She saw that I wasn't bluffing. Her anger gave way to desperation. I can change. Please. But my mind was made up. It's over, Stephanie. I can't do this anymore. Her pleas turned to insults again before she finally stomped off to pack. Meanwhile, I grabbed my phone and messaged a close friend. It's happening. I'm divorcing her. The next morning, she left to stay with a friend or coworker. After that, our conversations became strictly about logistics, dividing belongings, sorting finances. Thankfully, we had no children, which made the process simpler. She insisted she had just been under stress, that I was overreacting. I remained calm. You can believe whatever you want. I know the truth. The divorce was straightforward, though contentious. She tried to push for more alimony, claiming she had given up her job for me, a blatant lie. We had never agreed to that, and my lawyer shut it down. Our home had been mine before the marriage, and with no significant shared assets, she walked away with only a small settlement. On the day we signed the final papers, we didn't speak. She looked hollow while I felt nothing but relief. Maybe a hint of sadness, for what could have been, if she had ever truly respected me. Moving forward. In the months since, I've settled into life on my own. I focus on my work, my well-being. Sometimes, memories resurface. The rare good times, her infectious laughter in the early days. But they are drowned out by the reality of what our relationship became. Do I feel bad that she got slapped at that party? Not really. I don't condone violence, but she provoked it. She thrived on drama and attention, and in the end, it backfired. That final argument exposed how little she valued me, how little she ever had. The real lesson? You can't save someone from their own destructive impulses. And you should never sacrifice your self-respect just to keep the peace. Now I'm starting a new chapter. Single, a little jaded but undeniably relieved. If there's any irony, it's in how she always accused me of not being man enough. Yet, in the end, being a real man meant walking away for good. And I have no regrets. I'd rather be alone in peace than stuck in chaos with someone who never truly valued me. The storm has passed. And I'm finally free.